I am going to recite the starting lineups of every World Series team to date from memory. This is just for evidence. You shouldn't watch this. This is just proof, I guess, that I can put myself through this. It's a hyperfixation, I guess, that I do to relax or self-soothe sometimes. So, you know, if you're asking yourself, why would you make this video? Ask yourself, why would you watch this? Click off. This isn't for you to watch. Just, you know, if this is your thing, feel free to join me on this path. I'm sure the psychic damage I incur is going to be amusing, I guess, on some level. So I don't have a list or anything around me here. Pick this up. Right, I got my dumbass green screen. I got a coffee pot. And just this is my room, okay? No need list or anything up anywhere to help me remember. I'm sure I'm going to have my eyes closed through a lot of this as I squint through the pain. Okay. Why am I doing this? Okay, let's do this. Let's do it. First World Series, 1903. We'll do American League, National League. We'll do outfield, left, center, right, so I can save time on saying position names. We'll do infield, third, short, second, first, catcher, pitcher, and then later designated hitter, all right? I don't want to have to say the position names every time. This is going to take forever. Oh, okay, let's do this. 1903, First World Series, Boston Americans. Outfield was Patsy Doherty, Chick Stahl, and Buck Freeman. The infield is Jimmy Collins, Freddie Parent, Hobie Ferris, and Candy LaChance. Luke Krieger catching, Cy Young pitching. Pittsburgh Pirates outfield is Fred Clark, Ginger Beaumont, Jimmy Sebring. The infield is Tommy Leach, Hannes Wagner, Claude Ritchie, and Kitty Bransfield. Ed Phelps catching, Deacon Philippi pitching. No World Series 1904. 1905, American League Philadelphia Athletics. Outfield is Topsy Hartzell, Briss Lord, Sock Sabold. Infield is Lave Cross, Monty Cross, Danny Murphy, and Harry Davis. Catching is Ossie Schreckengost. And pitching Eddie Plank. New York Giants, outfield Sam Mertz, Turkey Mike Donlin, George Brown. Infield is Art Devlin, Bill Dahlin, Billy Gilbert, and Dan McGann. Catcher Roger Bresnahan, and pitching Christy Mathewson. 1906. Chicago White Sox hitless wonders. Outfield is Patsy Doherty, Fielder Jones, and Eddie Hahn. The infield is George Rowe, Lee Tannehill, Frank Isbell, and Jiggs Donahue, with Billy Sullivan Sr., I guess, catching, and Nick Altrock pitching game one. The Chicago Cubs outfield of Jimmy Sheckard, Solly Hoffman, and Frank Shelty. Infield Harry Steinfeld, Joe Tinker, Johnny Evers, and Frank Chance. Catching Johnny Kling, pitching Mordecai Three Finger Brown. 1907. The Detroit Tigers, Davy Jones, Sam Crawford, and Ty Cobb in the outfield. The infield is Bill Coughlin, Charlie O'Leary, Jeremy Schaefer, and Claude Rossman. Catching, Boss Schmidt. Pitching, Bill Donovan. Against the Chicago Cubs, outfield this time is Jimmy Sheckard, Jimmy Slagle, and Frank Schulte. Infield is Harry Steinfeld, Joe Tinker, Johnny Evers, and Frank Chance. Catching, Johnny Kling. Pitching, Orville Overall. Best name in this whole thing. 1908, repeat series. Tigers, Matty McIntyre, Sam Crawford, Ty Cobb in the outfield. The infield is Germany Schaefer, Charlie O'Leary, Red Downs, Claude Rossman, Boss Schmidt catching, and Ed Killian pitching. Cubs, outfield, Jimmy Sheckard, Solly Hoffman, Frank Schulte. Infield, Harry Steinfeld, Joe Tinker, Johnny Evers, Frank Chance, Johnny Kling catching, and Ed Rulbach pitching. 1909. The Tigers, Davy Jones, Sam Crawford, Ty Cobb in the outfield. Completely new infield, George Moriarty, Donnie Bush, Jim Delahanty, and Tom Jones. Boss Schmidt catching, George Mullen pitching. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, Fred Clark, Tommy Leach, and Chief Wilson in the outfield. Bobby Byrne, Hannes Wagner, Dots Miller, and Bill Adstein in the infield. George Gibson catching, Babe Adams pitching. That's the first six. That's the odds. Okay. So this isn't going to be so bad, is it? This isn't going to take all day? I don't know. 1910s. Philadelphia Athletics are back. Outfield is Briss Lord, Amos Strunk, Danny Murphy. The infield is Frank Home Run Baker, Jack Barry, Eddie Collins, and Harry Davis. Ira Thomas catching, and Chief Bender pitching. The Cubs, pretty similar. Outfield, Jimmy Sheckard, Solly Hoffman, Frank Schulte. Infield is Harry Steinfeld, Joe Tinker, Heine Zimmerman, Frank Chance, Johnny Kling catching, Orville Overall pitching again. 1911, Athletics are back. Outfield is Briss Lord, Rube Oldring, Danny Murphy. Infield, Home Run Baker, Jack Barry, Eddie Collins, Harry Davis, Ira Thomas catching again, Chief Bender pitching. I said Ira Thomas the first time. I hope I did. You know, correct me. Get on me in the comments. The one hypothetical person that watches this seriously. Their 1911 opponents, the New York Giants. Outfield Josh DeWar, Fred Snodgrass, Red Murray. Infield Buck Herzog, Art Fletcher, Larry Doyle, Fred Merkel. Chief Myers catching, and Christy Mathewson pitching. 1912 Boston Red Sox. Outfield Duffy Lewis, Tris Speaker, Harry Hooper. The infield Larry Gardner, Heine Wagner, Steve Yerkes, and Jake Stahl. Forrest Cady or Hick Cady catching, and Smokey Joe Wood pitching. Giants again. Outfield Josh DeVore, Fred Snodgrass, Red Murray. Infield Buck Herzog, Art Fletcher, Larry Doyle, Fred Merkel. Chief Myers catching, this time Jeff Tesreau pitching. 1913, Philadelphia Athletics are back. Outfield Rube Oldring, Amos Strunk, and Eddie Murphy. Not the comedian, I guess. Infield Home Run Baker, Jack Berry, Eddie Collins, and Stuffy McInnes. Wally Shang catching, Chief Bender pitching. The Giants one last time. Outfield George J. Burns. I'm going to throw in initials if the names repeat. This is George J. Burns, the outfielder. Tilly Schaefer in center, Red Murray at right. The infield, again, of Buck Herzog, Art Fletcher, Larry Doyle, and Fred Merkel. Chief Myers catching, and Rube Marquardt pitching. 1914, Athletics. Again, Rube Oldring, Amos Strunk, Eddie Murphy in the outfield, Frank Baker, Jack Berry, Eddie Collins, Stucky McInnes at first, Wally Shang catching, Chief Bender pitching, like the same, pretty much. The Boston Braves, they surprised them in 4 games. Outfield for game 1, Joe Connolly, George Possum Whitted, which is a sick name, Herbie Moran. Infield with Charlie Deal, Rabbit Marinville, Johnny Evers, and Butch Schmidt. Hank Gowdy catching, Dick Rudolph pitching in game 1. Okay, it's 14. 15, Red Sox, Boston Red Sox. Outfield Duffy Lewis, Tris Speaker, Harry Hooper. Infield Larry Gardner, Everett Scott, Jack Berry, and Dick Hoblitzel. Forrest Cady catching, and Ernie Shore pitching. The Philadelphia Phillies are their opponents. Outfield of Possum Whitted, Dodie Paskert, and Gabby Cravat, the 3 weirdest names for an outfield ever. Infield, Milt Stock, Dave Bancroft, Bert Nyhoff, Fred Luderis or Luderis, I don't know. Ed Burns catching, Grover Alexander, Grover Cleveland Alexander, Pete Alexander, whatever you want to call him, pitching. 16, more Boston Red Sox. Outfield, Duffy Lewis, Tilly Walker, Harry Hooper. Infield, Larry Gardner, Everett Scott, Hal Janbrin, Dick Hoblitzel, Forrest Cady, and Ernie Shore. Against the Brooklyn Robins, or Dodgers, I guess. Outfield, Zach Wheat, Hy Myers, and Casey Stengel. Infield, Mike Mowry, Ivy Olson, George Cutshaw, Jake Dalbert at first. Chief Myers catching, Rube Marquardt pitching, just like the Giants. 1917, the Clean White Sox. Shoeless Joe Jackson, Happy Fell, Shane O'Collins in the outfield. The infield comprised of Fred McMullen, Buck Weaver, Eddie Collins, and Chick Gandil. Ray Shaw catching, Eddie Seacott pitching. Against the New York Giants team, you have George J. Burns in left, Benny Kauf in center, Jim Thorpe in right for game 1, even though he doesn't even get to bat. They take him out for a pinch hitter before he comes up. The infield consisting of Heine Zimmerman, Art Fletcher, Buck Herzog, and Walter Holke. Lou McCarty catching, and Slim Sally pitching. 1918, kind of goofy lineups. Boston Red Sox, George Whiteman, Amos Strunk, and Harry Hooper in the outfield. Fred Thomas, Everett Scott, Dave Sheen, and Stuffy McInnes at first. Wally Shang catching, Babe Ruth pitching. This is like a lot of Yankees and former A's. Against the Chicago Cubs, who have Les Mann, Dodie Paskert, and Max Flack in their outfield. They got the mostly Charlie's infield of Charlie Deal, Charlie Holliker, and Charlie Pick, and then at first base, Fred Merkel. Bill Killefer catching, Hippo Vaughn pitching. Let's see. Then 1919, Black Sox scandal, baby. The Black Sox, White Sox, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Happy Fell, Shane O'Collins. Infield, Buck Weaver, Swede Risberg, Eddie Collins, Chick Gandil, Ray Shaw catching, Eddie Seacott pitching against those Reds. Pat Duncan, Ed Roche, Greasy Neal, the future football coach. The infield of Heine Groh, Larry Koff, Maury Rath, and Jake Dalbert at first. You got Ivy Wingo catching, cool name there, and then Dutch Ruther pitching. That's the teens, dude. That's how fast it takes to do 10 years, right? So that's not too bad. 1920s, dead ball era is over, okay? I hope I don't lose my voice here. Okay. 1920, the Cleveland Blue. I'm going to still call them the Guardians. Fuck their stupid old name. Cleveland infield or outfield, sorry, of Joe Evans, Tris Speaker, and Smokey Joe Wood. The infield is Larry Gardner, Joe Sewell, Mr. Triple Play himself, Bill Wamsgans at second, George H. Burns at first, Steve O'Neill catching, and Stan Kowaleski pitching. Brooklyn Robbins, Zach Wheat, Hy Myers, and Tommy Griffith, the infield of Jimmy Johnston, Ivy Olson, Pete Kilduff, and Ed Kenichi. Ernie Kruger catching, Rube Marquardt pitching. 1921, that's Yankees-Giants time, let's go. 21, Yankees outfield consists of Babe Ruth, Elmer Miller, and Bob Meusel. Infield of the infield of Mike McNally, Roger Peckinpah, Aaron Ward, and Wally Pipp. Wally Shang catching, and Carl Mays pitching. I almost said Dave McNally there, but you're not going to catch me tripping. I know who that is. New York Giants, 21. Their opposition. The brother of Bob Meusel, Irish Meusel in left. You got George J. Burns in center, Ross Youngs in right. The infield is Frankie Frisch, Dave Bancroft, Johnny Rawlings, and George Long Pockets, High Pockets Kelly. There's a bunch of dumb nicknames. Frank Snyder catching, Phil Douglas pitching. 22, more Yankees, more Giants. Yankees now have Bob Meusel, Whitey Witt, and Babe Ruth. The infield of Joe Dugan, Everett Scott, Aaron Ward, and Wally Pipp. Wally Shang catching, and Bullet Joe Bush pitching. The Giants with Irish Meusel, Casey Stengel, Ross Youngs. The infield of Heine Groh, Dave Bancroft, Frankie Frisch, George Kelly, Frank Snyder catching, Art Neff pitching. The only time we had the same World Series 3 times in a row. 1923, Yankees again. I think they're pretty much the same. Outfield of Bob Meusel, Whitey Witt, Babe Ruth. Infield of Joe Dugan, Everett Scott, Aaron Ward, Wally Pipp, Wally Shang catching. This time you got Wade Hoyt pitching. He seems to pitch when they win the series in the 20s. He'll pitch game 1. The Giants again, Irish Meusel, Casey Stengel, Ross Youngs. What did I say? Heine Groh, Dave Bancroft, Frankie Frisch, George Kelly. This time you got Hank Gowdy catching and Milt Watson pitching. 1924, the Washington Senators, the original ones that are now the Minnesota Twins. Let's see, Goose Goslin, Earl McNeely, and Sam Rice in the outfield. The infield is Ossie Bluegee, Roger Peckinpah, Bucky Harris, and Joe Judge. Muddy Rule catching, Walter the Big Train Johnson pitching. One more pennant for the New York Giants. Irish Meusel doesn't start in left. Damn, caught me tripping. He does not start game 1. Game 1 is Hack Wilson. Center field is George Kelly. Now, Ross Young's in right. Almost a new infield of Freddie Lindstrom, Travis Jackson. You got Frankie Frisch, Bill Terry at first. Hank Gowdy catching. Art Neff is pitching again. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. 25, Washington Senators are back. Goose Goslin, Sam Rice, and Joe Harris. Infield of Ossie Bluegee, Roger Peckinpah, Joe Harris, and Bucky Harris, I just said Joe Harris, and Joe Judge. Muddy Rule catching, Walter Johnson pitching. Now I'm going to be tripping all over these names as I go here. Pittsburgh Pirates, who beat them. You got Clyde Barnhart, Max Carey, and Kiki Kyler. Pie trainer Glenn Wright, Eddie Moore, and George Grantham with Earl Smith pitching and Lee Meadows. Or Earl Smith catching, Lee Meadows pitching. 26, Yankees are back. Bob Meusel, Earl Combs, Babe Ruth. In your outfield, your infield is Joe Dugan, Mark Koenig, Tony Lazzari, I don't know, and Lou Gehrig. You got Hank Severeid catching and Herb Pennick pitching against a Cardinals team that features Chick Hafey, Taylor Douthit, and Billy Southworth. In the outfield, Les Bell, Tommy Devino at shortstop, Rogers Hornsby at second, Jim Bottomley at first, Bob O'Farrell catching, and Bill Sherdell pitching. 27, more Yankees, more Bob Meusel, Earl Combs, Babe Ruth, Joe Dugan, Mark Koenig, Tony Lazzari, Lou Gehrig, Pat Collins catching, Wade Hoyt pitching. The Pirates, Clyde Barnhart, Lloyd Wainer, Paul Wainer, Pie Trainer, Dr. Seuss ass shit going on here, Glenn Wright, George Grantham, and Joe Harris. In the infield, you got Earl Smith catching, Ray Kramer pitching. 27, that's 27, so 28 now. Third in a row Yankees. Interesting. You got Bob Meusel, Ben Peschel or Pascal or whatever in center. Babe Ruth in right. You got Joe Dugan, Mark Koenig, Tony Lazzari, Lou Gehrig. You know how Benny Bengoff or Benny Bengo or whatever catching and Wade Hoyt pitching against another St. Louis Cardinals team that is again Chick Hafey, Taylor Douthit, George Harper, Andy High, Rabbit Moranville, Frankie Frisch, Jim Bottomley. You got Jimmy Wilson catching and Bill Sherdell pitching again. And then one more for the 20s. Philadelphia Athletics, Connie Mack's back. The A's going with Al Simmons, Neil Haas, and Bing Miller. Infield of Jimmy Dykes, Joe Boley, Max Bishop, and Jimmy Fox. Mickey Cochran catching, and then surprise, surprise, Howard Emke pitching against a Cubs team that features Riggs Stevenson, Hack Wilson, and Kiki Kyler in the outfield. The infield is comprised of Norm McMillan, Woody English, Rogers Hornsby, and Charlie Grimm. Zach Taylor catching, and Charlie Root pitching. That's the 20s. Let me get my water. I hope I didn't miss any. Guess it doesn't matter. This isn't starting to really hurt yet, so I think we're okay. 30s. Philadelphia Athletics are back. Al Simmons, Mule Haas, Bing Miller. Infield is Jimmy Dykes, Joe Boley, Max Bishop, Jimmy Fox. Mickey Cochran catching, lefty Grove pitching. Against St. Louis Cardinals, Chick Hafey, Taylor Douthat, Ray Blades, Sparky Adams, Charlie Gelbert, Frankie Frisch, Jim Bottomley, Gus Mancuso, and this is Burley Grimes pitching in this one. Rematch, 31, A's. Again, Al Simmons, Mule Haas, Bing Miller in the outfield. Jimmy Dykes, Dib Williams, Max Bishop, and Jimmy Fox. The battery is Mickey Cochran and Lefty Grove again. Cardinals this time, Chick Hafey, Taylor Douthat, Wally Redker in the outfield. Andy High, Charlie Gelbert, Frankie Frisch, Jim Bottomley in your infield. And your battery is Jimmy Wilson and Paul Derringer. 32, Yankees. Ben Chapman, Earl Combs, and Babe Ruth in your outfield. Infield, you got Joe Sewell, Frankie Crosetti, Tony Lazzari, Lou Gehrig, Bill Dickey catching, and Red Ruffing pitching against a Cubs team that is Riggs Stevenson, Johnny Moore, and Kiki Kyler in the outfield. Woody English, Mark Koenig, Billy Herman, and Charlie Grimm on the infield. Gabby Hartnett catching, and Guy Bush pitching. I hope. 33, man. The Washington Senators one last time. Outfield is Heine Manish, Fred Schulte, and Goose Goslin. The infield is Ossie Bluegee, Joe Cronin, Buddy Meyer, and Joe Cool, or Kuhel, Joe Cool. You got Luke Sewell catching, and Lefty Stewart pitching, game one. Giants, Jojo Morkito Davis, and Mel Ott in the outfield. Travis Jackson, Blondie Ryan, Huey Kritz, and Bill Terry. And then you got Gus Mancuso and Carl Hubble is your battery. 34, the Tigers are going to go easy on me by having the same lineup a couple years in a row. The outfield being Goose Goslin, JoJo White, and Pete Fox. How do we have two JoJos in two series in a row? The infield of Marv Owen, Billy Rogel, Charlie Gehringer, Hank Greenberg. You got Mickey Cochran and General Crowder pitching. They take on a Cardinals team who beat them that features Joe Medwick, Ernie Ersatti, and Jack Rothrock. Your infield is Pepper Martin, Leo DeRocher, Frankie Frisch, and Ripper Collins. You got Bill Delancey catching and Dizzy Dean pitching. 35, the Tigers are back, and it's basically the same. It's Goose Goslin, JoJo White, Pete Fox. It is Marv Owen, Billy Rogel, Charlie Gehringer, and Hank Greenberg. It is Mickey Cochran catching. This time you have Schoolboy Rowe pitching. A Cubs team that features Augie Gallen, Freddie Lindstrom, and Frank Demery in your outfield. You got Stan Hack, Billy Jurgis, Billy Herman, Phil Cavaretta, Gabby Hartnett, and Lon Warnicki. Damn. This is gonna be thirsty work here. Damn. Okay, 36. Get ready for a whole lot of Yankees forever. The Yankees outfield, the unfortunate Jake Powell. You got Joe DiMaggio, and you got George Selkirk. Infield-wise, we were talking Red Roll, Frankie Crosetti, Tony Lazzari, Lou Gehrig. You got Bill Dickey, and Red Ruffing is your battery. Against the Giants team that is JoJo Moore, Jimmy Ripple, and Mel Ott. Your infield is Travis Jackson, Dick Bartell, Burgess Whitehead, Bill Terry. Your battery is Gus Mancuso, Carl Huddle. Repeat. 37, the Yankees. This time you got Merrill Hogan left, but then it's Joe DiMaggio and George Selkirk. The infield is a Red Roll, Frankie Crosetti, Tony Lazzari, Lou Gehrig. You got Bill Dickey catching. This time you have Lefty Gomez in game one. The Giants are JoJo Moore, Hank Lieber, and Jimmy Ripple in the outfield. Then you got Mel Ott at third, Dick Bartell, Burgess Whitehead, Johnny McCarthy at first, batteries, again, Gus Mancuso, Carl Hubble. 38. The Yankees are now George Selkirk, Joe DiMaggio, and Tommy Henrich. The infield is Red Roll, Frankie Crosetti, Joe Gordon, and Lou Gehrig. You got Bill Dickey catching, Red Ruffing pitching. The 38's the Cubs. So we are talking about an outfield of Frank Demery, Carl Reynolds, and Phil Cavarretta. Infield being Stan Hack, Billy Jurgis, Billy Herman, and Ripper Collins. You got Gabby Hartnett catching, and Bill, we're going to use it in middle initial, Bill Seeley, Bill Crutcherly, not to be mistaken for the spaceman, pitching. 39, Yankees, George Selkirk, Joe DiMaggio, and Charlie Keller. We're talking Red Roll, Frankie Crosetti, Joe Gordon, Babe Dahlgren, and then Bill Dickey and Red Ruffing to round that out. And then this is the Cincinnati Reds. So we're talking Wally Berger, Harry Kraft, and Ivel Goodman in the outfield. We're talking Billy Werber, Billy Myers, Lonnie Fry, and Frank McCormick in the infield. And then your battery is Ernie Lombardi and Paul Derringer. And that's the 30s. God damn. Woo! I'm not questioning this at all. This is the video I want to make. This is the stupid video I want to put out in the world. It needs to be available, even if it's just for punishment. The 40s, my team, the Detroit Tigers, talking Hank Greenberg, Barney McCoskey, and Bruce Campbell, not the actor, I guess, in the outfield. Infield is Pinky Higgins, Dick Bartell, Charlie Gehringer, and Rudy York. You have Billy Sullivan Jr., the second one, catching with Bobo Newsom pitching against another Reds team this time. They are Jimmy Ripple, Mike McCormick, and Ivel Goodman. The infield's Billy Werber, Billy Myers, Eddie Just, and Frank McCormick. With Lombardi injured, you got Jimmy Wilson coming out of retirement, catching Paul Derringer, pitching again. That's a crazy story. I love that series. 41. Yankees, Dodgers, get used to this. The Yankees, we're talking Charlie Keller, Joe DiMaggio, and Tommy Henrich. With an infield of Red Rolf, Phil Rizzuto, Joe Gordon, and Johnny Sturm. Bill Dickey and Red Ruffing. Again, your battery. The Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers, we're talking Joe Medwick, Pete Reiser, Dixie Walker, Cookie Lavagetto, Pee Wee Reese, Billy Herman, Dolph Camilli. You got Mickey Owens and Kurt Davis as your battery. 1942, Yankees, Cardinals. Yankees. Again, Charlie Keller, Joe DiMaggio, Roy Cullenbine. Infield of Red Roll, Phil Rizzuto, Joe Gordon, and Buddy Hassett. And then the battery again is Bill Dickey and Red Ruffing. Against the Cardinals team, we're talking Stan Musial, Terry Moore, and Enos Slaughter. Infield of Whitey Karofsky, Marty Marion, Jimmy Brown, and Johnny Hopp. Walker Cooper catching, Mort Cooper pitching. You got the brothers as the battery. 43 rematch, except World War II starts happening here. The American part involvement in World War II happens. You start losing players, so it's a little weird. But 43 Yankees are like Charlie Keller, Johnny Lindell, and Tuck Steinbach in the outfield. Billy Johnson, a returning Frankie Crosetti, Joe Gordon, and Nick Atten on the infield. Bill Dickey pitching, Bill Dickey catching, Spud Chandler pitching. And the Cardinals this time, Danny Litweiler, Johnny Hopp, and Stan Musial. In the outfield, Whitey Karofsky, Marty Marion, I know it, Lou Klein at second, Ray Sanders, and then Walker Cooper and Max Lanier pitching this time. 44. That's 43, right? Yeah. 44. The only St. Louis Browns appearance before they become the Orioles in a way. Talking Chet Labs, Mike Kravitz, and Gene Moore. Infield of Mark Crispin, Vern Stevens, Don Guttridge, and George McQuinn. Red Hayworth catching, Danny Galehouse pitching. The Cardinals this time, Danny Litweiler, Johnny Hopp, and Stan Musial on the outfield. The infield is again Whitey Karofsky, Marty Marion, Emil Verben, and Ray Sanders. And you got Walker Cooper and Mort Cooper as your battery. 45. The most weird lineups of all here. The Tigers, Hank Greenberg, Doc Kramer, and Roy Cullenbine. The infield of absolute nobodies, Jimmy Outlaw, Skeeter Webb, Eddie Mayo, Rudy York. You got Paul Richards behind a plate, Hal Newhouser pitching. The Cubs, Peanuts, Lowry, Andy Pafko, Bill Nicholson on their outfit. You got Stan Hack, Roy Hughes, Don Johnson, again, not the actor. I gotta stop that gimmick, come on, man. Phil Cavarretta at first, Mickey Livingston catching, Hank Barawi pitching. 45, we got through the war, baby. 46, the Red Sox are finally back. Ted Williams, Dom DiMaggio, Tom McBride, the infield of Pinky Higgins, Johnny Pesky, Bobby Doerr, and Rudy York. You got Hal Wagner and Tex Houston is your battery. Against the Cardinals, who are Harry Walker, Terry Moore, and Enos Slaughter. So you got guys back from the war. You got Whitey Karofsky, Marty Marion, Red Shanedeans, and Stan Musial on your infield. And you got a battery of my buddy Joe Garagiola and Howie Pollitt pitching. 47, Yankees-Dodgers is part 2. Damn. Yankees are Johnny Lindell, Joe DiMaggio, and Tommy Henrik. The infield is Billy Johnson, Phil Rizzuto, Snuffy Sternweiss, and George McQuinn. Yogi Berra appearing for the first time, Spec Shea pitching against a Dodgers team that is Gene Hermansky, Pete Reiser, and Dixie Walker. In the outfield, the infield is Spider Jorgensen, Pee Wee Reese, Eddie Stanky, and Jackie Robinson at first base. Finally, the segregation is over. Bruce Edwards catching and Ralph Branca pitching. That's 1948. My parents were born like a couple years. That's 47. Like my parents were born a couple years after that. That's how recent segregation. It's ridiculous. 48. Cleveland. Dill Mitchell, Larry Doby, Wally Judnick in the outfield. The infield, Ken Keltner, Lou Boudreau, Joe Gordon, and Eddie Robinson. You got Jim Hegan and Bob Feller as your battery. You got a Boston Braves team. Marv Rickert, Mike McCormick, Tommy Holmes. Your infield is Bob Elliott, Al Dark, Eddie Stanky, Earl Torgeson. You got friggin' Bill Salkeld catching and Johnny Sane pitching. 49, let's do this. This is the Yankee stretch here. This is going to be a lot of repetition, man. Yankees, we're talking Johnny Lindell, Joe DiMaggio, and Cliff Mapes. Infield of Billy Johnson, Phil Rizzuto, Jerry Coleman and Tommy Henrik. You got Yogi Berra and Allie Reynolds as your battery. Dodgers are back. Gene Hermansky, Duke Snyder, and Carl Furillo. I want to say Furio, but I always heard it the other way. I don't know. Spider Jorgensen, Pee Wee Reese, Jackie Robinson, Gil Hodges, your classic Dodgers here. You got Roy Campanella behind the plate and Don Newcomb pitching. So great. Let me take a second to breathe. This is the 50s. And this is the 50s are these Yankees town. It's just New York, New York, New York. How did they let them do that in the 50s? Why did they let the Yankees win all the series? They were just that good, I guess. All right. 50. Yankees, Gene Woodling, Joe DiMaggio, and Hank Bauer. The infield's Bobby Brown. I'll throw there's another Bobby Brown later, so Bobby William Brown, Bobby W. Brown. Phil Rizzuto, Jerry Coleman, and Johnny Mize, and you got Yogi Berra and Vic Rashi pitching this time. And then you get the Wonder Boy Phillies, whatever they were called. They only show up one time here. And their outfield is Dick Sisler, Richie Ashburn, and Del Ennis. We're talking Willie Jones, Granny Hamner, Mike Goliath, or however you pronounce that name, and Eddie Waitkus catching, Andy Semenuk, and then a guy that's typically a relief pitcher, Jim Constanti pitching. 51. Yankees, Hank Bauer, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle debuting here. And you got Gil McDougald, Phil Rizzuto, Jerry Coleman, and Joe Collins now. And then you again have Yogi Berra and Allie Reynolds. You got a New York Giants team. This is the last Yankees New York Giants. Monty Irvin, Willie Mays, Hank Thompson in your outfield. You got an infield comprised of Bobby Thompson, Al Dark, Eddie Stanky, and Whitey Lockman. You got Wes Westrom, and you have Dave Koslow pitching. And then you get to 1952. Yankees, Dodgers. Yankees here. Irv Noren, Mickey Mantle, and Hank Bauer in your outfield. We're talking Gil McDougald, Phil Rizzuto, Billy Martin, Joe Collins in your infield, and then again Yogi Berra and Allie Reynolds. Dodgers. You got Andy Pafko, Duke Snyder, Carl Furillo. You got Billy Cox, Pee Wee Reese, Jackie Robinson, Gil Hodges. You got Roy Campanella and Joe Black. 53, Yankees, Dodgers again. The Yankees, Gene Woodling, Mickey Mantle, Hank Bauer. Infield's Gil McDougald, Phil Rizzuto, Billy Martin, Joe Collins, and the battery is Yogi Berra and Allie Reynolds again. The Dodgers, Jackie Robinson, Duke Snyder, Carl Furillo in your outfield. The infield's Billy Cox, Pee Wee Reese, Jim Gilliam, and Gil Hodges. You got Roy Campanella catching and Carl Erskine pitching. God damn. Sucks. This really sucks. 54, we get a break from the Yankees, Cleveland. We're talking Al Smith, Larry Doby, Dave Philly. Infield is comprised of Al Rosen, George Strickland, Bobby Avila, and Vic Wertz. You got Jim Hegan and Bob Lemon as your battery. And then New York Giants, Monty Irvin, Willie Mays, and Don Mueller. Infield is Hank Thompson, Al Dark, Davey Williams, and Whitey Lockman, and the battery of Wes Westrom and Sel Magley. 55. The comeuppance of the Dodgers here against the Yankees team that's outfield is Elston Howard, Irv Noren, and Hank Bauer. Mickey's hurt. You got an infield of Gil McDougald, Phil Rizzuto, Billy Martin, Joe Collins, Yogi Berra catching, and now you got Whitey Ford starting his first game one. Get used to his name. And the Dodgers team that finally beats them, starting Jim Gilliam, Duke Snyder, Carl Furillo. Infield of Jackie Robinson, Pee Wee Reese, Don Zimmer, and Gil Hodges. Your battery is Roy Campanella and Don Newcomb. Rematch, 56. Yankees, we're talking Enos Slaughter, Mickey Mantle, and Hank Bauer. Infield comprised of Andy Carey, Gil McDougald, Billy Martin, and Bill Skowron, Moose Skowron, I guess, big boy, and then Yogi Berra and Whitey Ford. Dodgers team pretty similar. You got Sandy Amaros, Duke Snyder, Carl Furillo. You got infield Jackie Robinson, Pee Wee Reese, Jim Gilliam, and Gil Hodges. And you got the battery of Roy Campanella and gasp the enemy, Sal Magley. Can't believe a Giants pitching for the Dodgers. Goddamn, 57. The Milwaukee Braves and the Yankees. Someone else finally beats these guys. Yankees with Tony Kubek, Mickey Mantle, Hank Bauer. Infield is Andy Carey, Gil McDougald, Jerry Coleman, and Bill Skowron. And your batteries again, Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford. The Braves are Wes Covington, Hank Aaron, and Andy Pafko. And your outfield, your infield's Eddie Matthews, Johnny Logan, Red Shane Deans, Joe Adcock. Del Crandall, Warren Spahn is your battery. 58, rematch time. Surprise, surprise. Yankees win this time. Elston Howard, Mickey Mantle, Hank Bauer. Your infield is Andy Carey, Tony Kubek, Gil McDougald, and Bill Skowron. And you got Yogi Berra and Whitey Ford as your battery. Braves, pretty similar. I think they switch a couple guys in the outfield position-wise. You got Wes Covington, Andy Pafko, Hank Aaron. I think it just switches. Eddie Matthews, Johnny Logan, Red Shane Deans, Joe Adcock. Battery's the same. It's Del Crandall, Warren Spahn. 59, it's not the Yankees against the Chicago White Sox. Thankfully, someone else. Al Smith, Jim Landis, Jim Rivera. Infield of Billy Goodman, Luis Aparicio, Nellie Fox, and Ted Kluszewski. And then you got Sherm Lawler and Early Wynn pitching against a Los Angeles Dodgers team with Wally Moon, Duke Snyder, Norm Larker. Infield comprised of Jim Gilliam, Maury Wills, Charlie Neal, and Gil Hodges. And you got John Roseborough and Roger Craig. Is your battery? This is the 60s now. Oh my God. God, the 50s is the worst. Is it worse repeating them or is it worse having something new each time? Are the 80s worse for me? I don't know. Let's see. See which causes me more of a fucking headache. 60. God damn. 60. Yankees. They're pretty messed up, I think. We're talking about, let's see, the outfield is Hector Lopez, Mickey Mantle, and Roger Maris. We got an infield comprised of Clete Boyer, Tony Kubek, Bobby Richardson, and Bill Skowron. And your battery is Yogi Berra and Art Ditmar. I guess the big mistake was they didn't start Whitey Ford, if you read about it. The Pirates, this fantastic World Series, Bob Skinner, Bill Verdon, Roberto Clemente. Infield, Don Hoke, Dick Grote, Bill Mazeroski, Dick Stewart. And then you got Smokey Burgess and Vern Law. 61, more fucking Yankees. Yogi Berra, Roger Maris, and Hector Lopez. You got more injured Mickey. You got Clete Boyer, Tony Kubek, Bobby Richardson, Bill Skowron. And this time, you got Elston Howard, Whitey Ford as your battery. Yogi's in the outfield. And then this is the Reds. It's like Frank Robinson, Veda Pinson, Wally Post. The infield is Gene Freese, Eddie Casco, Don Blassingame, Gordy Coleman. You got like Daryl Johnson and Jim O'Toole as your battery, right? 62, Yankees. We're Tommy Tresh, Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris. Infield, again, Clete Boyer, Tony Kubek, Bobby Richardson. Now you got, this is still Bill Skowron, right? And then the battery is still Austin Howard, Whitey Ford. Okay, and then the Giants, they start the same four guys in both left and right field. It's insane. But game one is Harvey Keene, Willie Mays, Felipe Alou, I believe. You get Jim Davenport, Jose Pagan, Chuck Hiller, Orlando Cepeda, and then your battery is Ed Bailey and Billy O'Dell, another Irishy guy in the National League. 63, the Yankees get swept, thankfully. Tommy Tresh, Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris. Infield, Clete Boyer. God damn it, Rizzuto was a long time ago. It's Clete Boyer, Tony Kubek, Bobby Richardson, Joe Pepitone, this awesome comb over. Alston Howard, Whitey Ford. The Dodgers, who'd absolutely sweep the shit out of them. Tommy Davis, Willie Davis, Big Frank Howard, Jim Gilliam, Maury Wills, Dick Tracewski. They steal Bill Skowron from the Yankees, and then you got John Roseborough and Sandy Koufax. I'm having anxiety that I didn't say John Roseborough for 1959 Dodgers. I hope I didn't say Ryan Campanella. I'm pretty sure I said Joe Roseborough. I'm doing this so fast. Who cares? I'm not going back. 64. Yankees, 7 games. Cardinals. Yankees, we're talking Tommy Tresh, Roger Maris, and Mickey Mantle doing a switcheroo. Clete Boyer, Phil Linz, Bobby Richardson, Joe Pepitone, Alston Howard, Whitey Ford. The Cardinals, Lou Brock, Kurt Flood, Mike Shannon, Ken Boyer, the Boyer brothers, Dick Grote, Dal Maxville, Bill White, Tim McCarver, and Ray Sadecki for Game 1. 65, Minnesota Twins. Sandy Valdespino, Jimmy Hall, and Tony Oliva, I think is your outfield. You got Harmon Killebrew, Zoilo Versailles, Frank Quillisi, Don Mincher, and then Earl Batty and Mudcat Grant. Your battery. And the Dodgers come at you with Lou Johnson, Willie Davis, Ron Fairley, Jim Gilliam, Maury Wills, Jim Lefebvre, Wes Parker, John Roseborough, and Don Drysdale. 66. Orioles sweep the Dodgers. The Orioles, Kurt Blefary, Russ Snyder, Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, Luis Aparicio, Davey Johnson, Boog Powell. You got Andy Etchebarren catching, Dave McNally pitching. I'm going to let my cat in the room. I promise she's not going to help me cheat or anything. Come on, honey. Oh, 65. Okay, the 66. The Dodgers that those Orioles beat. We're talking Tommy Davis, Willie Davis, and Lou Johnson. Infield of Jim Gilliam, Maury Wills, Jim Lefebvre, and Wes Parker. And again, John Roseborough and Don Drysdale. 67. Cardinals, Red Sox. 67 Cardinals, Red Sox. We're talking Carl Yastrzemski, Reggie Smith, and Ken Harrelson. Dalton Jones, Rico Petrocelli, Jerry Adair, or whatever, George Scott, and then Russ Gibson and Jose Santiago. And then the Cardinals, you know, Lou Brock, Kurt Flood, Roger Maris, Mike Shannon, Dal Maxville, Julian Javier, Orlando Cepeda, Tim McCarver, and the man, Bob Gibson. 1968, I watched as many World Series games as I could on YouTube a couple years ago from 1968 to the present. This is the first one I watched. Yes, Missy, hyperfixation is right. Autism is fun sometimes. Other times it's kind of fucking hell. I'm being on the spectrum or whatever the fuck I am. 68. My Tigers. My favorite team. Willie Horton, Jim Northrup, Al Kaline, Don Wirt, Mickey Stanley, who's supposed to be an outfielder, Dick McAuliffe and Norm Cash. You got Bill Freehan and Denny McLean. Although it's Mickey Lolich that's the man in that series. I'll try not to bring up players who aren't starting. Sorry. Cat is sniffing the camera. Okay. Their opponents, pretty much same team from last year. Cardinals, Lou Brock, Kurt Flood, Roger Maris, Mike Shannon, Dal Maxville, Julian Javier, Orlando Cepeda, Tim McCarver, Bob Gibson. So exactly the same. Missy, go on, honey. the most entertaining part of this video, my cat walking by. Thank you. It's not going to get any better unless you want to see me in more psychic discomfort. 69, 1969. That used to be the funny number when I was young, not 67. You got Orioles Mets to the tune of Don Buford, Paul Blair, Frank Robinson. Infield, Brooks Robinson, Mark Belanger, Davey Johnson, Boog Powell. And then we're talking Elrod Hendricks and Mike Cuellar pitching. And those Mets, just fell off. Missy, come on. Clowning around, girl. The Mets. Cleon Jones, Tommy Agee, and Ron Swoboda, right? And then Ed Charles, Bud Harrelson, Al Weiss, and the man Don Clendenin with Jerry Grote and my boy Tom Seaver. Right, Missy? Damn, the 70s are here. Dynasty time. Okay, look, I'm I'm getting closer to my own lifetime. Like 11 years and I'm alive now, right? Whew. Orioles are like the friggin' same. Don Buford, Paul Blair, Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, Mark Belanger, Davey Johnson, Boo Powell, Elrod Hendricks. This time you got the man Jim Palmer pitching. Oh, against the Reds team, Sparky Anderson's boys. We're talking Bernie Carbo, Bobby Tolan, and Pete Rose. We're talking Tony Perez, Woody Woodward, Tommy Helms and Lee May, Johnny Bench. You got Gary Nolan pitching. 71, Pirates, Orioles. Orioles are like still Don Buford, but you got Merv Rettenmund in center, then Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, Mark Belanger, Davey Johnson, Boo Powell, Elrod Hendricks catching, and Dave McNally is pitching again. It's Dave McNally, yeah. And then the Pirates, Willie Stargell, Gene Kleins, Roberto Clemente. The infield being Jose Pagan, Jackie Hernandez, Dave Cash, and Bob Robertson. It's got two first names, sort of. Manny Sanguian and Doc Ellis. 72, the Oakland Athletics. The colorful, this is some fun series here. The A's, sans Reggie. We're talking Joe Rudy, George Hendrick, and Matty Alou. We're talking Sal Bando, Bert Campaneris, Dickie Green, Mike Epstein, Gene Tennis, and Ken Holtzman. Somehow it always ends up being Holtzman. Reds again, we're talking Pete Rose, Bobby Tolan, Cesar Geronimo, Dennis Menke, Dave Concepcion, Joe Morgan, and Tony Perez, Johnny Bench, and Gary Nolan. 73. 73, the A's are back. Joe Rudy, Reggie Jackson, Jesus Alou, Sal Bando, Bert Campaneris, Dick Green, Gene Tennis, Ray Fosse, and Ken Holtzman. And then the Mets, Cleon Jones, Willie Mays, Don Hahn, Wayne Garrett, Bud Harrelson, Felix Milan, whatever, John Milner, Jerry Grody, John Matlack. 74, last of the A's, Joe Rudy, Bill North, Reggie Jackson, Sal Bando, Bert Campaneris, Dick Green, Gene Tennis, Ray Fosse, Ken Holtzman. The Dodgers are like Bill Buckner, Jimmy Wynn, Joe Ferguson, infielder Ronce, Bill Russell, Davey Lopes, Steve Garvey, get used to that. Steve Yeager, get used to him. And Andy Messersmith. 75, one of the best ones. Fun to watch. They were talking the Red Sox with Carl Yastrzemski, Freddie Lynn. That's awesome. And Dwight Evans. Infield Rico Petrocelli, Rick Burleson, Denny Doyle, and Cecil Cooper. And you got the man Carlton Fisk, and you got another absolute badass in Luis Tiant. And that Reds team, no man. George Foster, Cesar Geronimo, Ken Griffey. We're talking about Pete Rose, Dave Concepcion, Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, Johnny Bench, Don Gullett. How do you beat them? Oh, here comes the DH years, man. Now I got to remember when the DH is in game one. I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem for my dumbass brain. Yankees, 76. Roy White, Mickey Rivers, and Elliot Maddox. Your infield's comprised of Greg Nettles, Fred Stanley, Willie Randolph, Chris Chambliss, Thurman Munson, and Doyle Alexander. And then the Reds are like the same with the DH. George Foster, Cesar Geronimo, Ken Griffey, Pete Rose, Dave Concepcion, Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, Johnny Bench, Don Gullett, and we'll do the DH last. That happens to Mr. Dan Dreesen. I didn't name the Yankees DH, did I? No, well, that's Lou Piniella, the red-assed one himself. So I caught myself there. Woo! 77. Yankees, Dodgers. Yankees, this time we're talking Lou Piniella, Mickey Rivers, Reggie Jackson, Greg Nettles, Bucky Dent, Willie Randolph, Chris Chambliss, Thurman Munson, and Don Gullett. No DH in the odd-numbered years for a hot minute here. Dodgers, Dusty Baker, Glenn Burke, Reggie Smith. We're talking again, Ron Say, Bill Russell, Davey Lopes, Steve Garvey, Steve Yeager. They go with Don Sutton in game one. 78. DH is back. And this is the last time we had the same World Series twice in a row. Today it was 70s here. Yankees, this time Roy White, Mickey Rivers, Lou Piniella. Infield, Greg Nettles, Bucky Dent, Fred Stanley, because Randolph's injured, Chris Chambliss, Thurman Munson, and Ed Figueroa in game one. And the Dodgers, Dusty Baker, Bill North. Not Bill North. He doesn't start game one. Rick Monday starts game one. Damn. Dusty Baker, Rick Monday, Reggie Smith, Ron Say, Bill Russell, Davey Lopes, Steve Garvey, Steve Yeager. God damn, I didn't name the DH again. Yankees DH is Reggie Jackson. The Dodgers, Steve Yeager, Tommy John pitching. The DH is Lee Lacy. So Man, the DH thing might take me a minute to get the rhythm, but I'll try not to forget. 79. The last fucking hurrah, the Pirates here. Orioles going with John Lowenstein, Al Bunbury, Ken Singleton, infield of Doug DeCinces, Mark Belanger, Billy Smith, Eddie Murray, Rick Dempsey, and Mike Flanagan, no DH. The Pirates, Bill Robinson, Omar Moreno, Dave Parker, infield Bill Madlock, Tim Foley, Phil Garner, Willie Stargell, Steve Nicosia catching, and Bruce Keeson pitching. Shit. Oh, God, that's the 70s, man. It's the 80s. 80s is like, there's like no dynasties, except, I mean, there's 3 Cardinals appearances. This is just like not as much repetition, so maybe it'll be harder. I don't know. 80. The Kansas City Royals. I don't think I've ever done this out loud. I usually do this on paper or a spreadsheet. I don't know, because why would you do this out loud? Unless you're trying to prove something, I guess, which I'm not even sure I'm trying to prove. Kansas City Royals. Let's go with the 80s here. Willie Wilson, Amos Otis, Clint Hurdle. You're talking infield George Brett, UL Washington, Frank White, and Willie Aikens. And you got Darryl Porter catching. You got Dennis Leonard pitching. Your DH Hal McRae. And then the Phillies, who in the series we're talking, Lonnie Smith was like 4 different teams in this. Yeah, you got Lonnie Smith, Gary Maddox, Bake McBride. You got Mike Schmidt, Larry Bowa, Manny Trio, Pete Rose. What an infield, man. You got Bobby Boone catching, Bob Walk, the rookie pitching. You got Greg Luzinski at the DH. And then I Am Born Into the World, 1981. And there's this strike, and it sucks. And the Yankees and the Dodgers play each other. They probably shouldn't have even played each other. Probably shouldn't like the Expos and something like that. But regardless, Dave Winfield, Jerry Mumphrey, and Lou Piniella in the outfield. You got Greg Nettles, Larry Milborn, Willie Randolph, Bob Watson, Rick Cerrone catching, and Ron Guidry pitching. Against the Dodgers team, Dusty Baker, Pedro Guerrero, Rick Monday. The infield is once again Ron Say, Bill Russell, Davey Lopes, Steve Garvey, Steve Yeager catching, and Jerry Royce pitching. Fernando Mania doesn't have him until like game 3. 82, the Milwaukee Brewers, who were an American League team back then. We're talking Ben Ogilvy, Gorman Thomas, Charlie Moore, Paul Molitor, Robin Yount, Jim Gantner, Cecil Cooper, Ted Simmons. Pitching is Mike Caldwell, and Roy Howell is your DH for game 1. And then the Cardinals. Lonnie Smith, David Green. Why would you start him over Willie McGee? David Green, George Hendrick, infield of Ken Oberkfell, Ozzie Smith, Tommy Herr, Keith Hernandez, Darryl Porter behind the plate, what's his name? Bob Forsch for game 1, Gene Tennis is DH. 83. Last Orioles series, John Lowenstein, Al Bunbury, and Jim Dwyer. Infield, Todd Cruz, Cal Ripken Jr., Rich Dower, Eddie Murray. You got Rick Dempsey and Scott McGregor. Against the... I hear you, Missy. I may have to stop and feed this cat. Well, I won't stop because I don't want anyone to think I'm cheating. I'll take you with me if I have to feed the cat. Damn, the Phillies. Gary Matthews, Gary Maddox, Sixto Lezcano in the outfield. Infield, Mike Schmidt, Ivan DeJesus, Joe Morgan, Pete Rose. You got Bo Diaz catching, John Denny pitching. 84, my favorite series. The last time the Tigers won. Larry Herndon, Chet Lemon, Kirk Gibson. You got Marty Castillo, Alan Trammell, and Lou Whitaker. What 2 better players are there? Darrell Evans, Lance Parrish catching, Jack Morris pitching, Barbaro Garbey at DH. And then those poor Padres. Carmelo Martinez, Bobby Lynn Brown, the second one I mentioned, Tony Gwynn, Greg Nettles, Gary Templeton, Alan Wiggins, Steve Garvey, Terry Kennedy, Mark Thurmond, and Kurt Novak was the DH. 85. Last time there's no DH at all. Kansas City Royals, we're talking Lonnie Smith on his 3rd team, Willie Wilson, Darryl Motley, George Brett, Buddy Biancalana, great, Frank White, Steve Balboni, Jim Sundberg, and Danny Jackson in game 1. Your St. Louis Cardinals, look at the injury because they ran over Coleman with the machine, the tarp machine or whatever, or the tarp. So you got Tito Landrum, Willie McGee, Cesar Cedeno, Terry Pendleton, Ozzie Smith, Tommy Herr, Jack Clark, Darryl Porter, And this time they go with John Tudor in game 1. 86, another fun series. They had the DH but didn't use it in game 1. Now, from now on, we're using it, or for a while, we're going to use it in alternate park, depending on whether they start in the American or National League park. Okay, 86, the Red Sox. We're talking Jim Rice, Dave Henderson, and Dwight Evans. Wade Boggs, Spike Owen, Marty Barrett, and Bill Buckner for better or worse at first base. You got Rich Gedman catching, and the game 1 they had to go with Bruce Hurst. You know, the playoff system, you always get to start your favorite guy in game 1, so Clemens has to wait. Same with Gooden for the Mets as they start. Mookie Wilson, Lenny Dykstra, Darryl Strawberry, Ray Knight, Rafael Santana, Tim Tuffle, Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, and Ron Darling. 87. Minnesota Twins, first win. Dan Gladden, Kirby Puckett, Tom Bernansky. The infield, Gary Gaetti, Greg Gagne, or Gagne, whatever you say. Steve Lombardozzi, Kent Herbeck. You got Tim Laudner behind the plate, Frank Viola pitching, and your DH is Don Baylor. The Cardinals' last stop in the 80s here, Vince Coleman, Willie McGee, Jose Oquendo, Tom Lawless, Ozzie Smith, Tommy Herr, Jim Lindemann, Tony Pena, Joe McGrain, who's like a rookie, and then I think their catcher Tom Pagnazzi. Like, so many people injured in that team. It's like, how it doesn't seem like a World Series team. 88, another team that doesn't seem like a World Series team wins here. You get to the start of this Oakland A's thing here. This year they like Dave Parker, Dave Henderson, Jose Canseco. You got Carney Lansford, Walt Weiss, Glenn Hubbard, Mark McGuire, Terry Steinbach behind the plates, and Dave Stewart pitching. DH not in game 1 for the series. The Los Angeles Dodgers looking all kinds of weird. Mickey Hatcher, John Shelby, and Mike Marshall. In the outfield, Jeff Hamilton, Alfredo Griffin, Steve Sachs, and Franklin Stubbs on the infield. Mike Scioscia catching, and then Tim Belcher going in game 1. So like the heroes, Hershiser and Gibson, not even starting game 1 here. 89 to end the 80s. The A's, finally a repeat team. Ricky Henderson, Dave Henderson, Jose Canseco, Carney Lansford, Walt Weiss, Tony Phillips, this awesome player. Mark McGuire, Terry Steinbach, Dave Stewart. Your DH is Dave Parker. And then the Giants, you're talking Kevin Mitchell, Brett Butler, Candy Maldonado, Matt Williams, Jose Uribe, Robbie Thompson, and Will Clark. Terry Kennedy behind the plate. They cite Scott Geraltz, or Geralt, or however you pronounce that. And then like Ernest Riles is your DH in that series. It's split in half by that earthquake. And then we're in the 90s, man. Damn. Almost did it. Entire century of baseball. Almost. The 90s. Oakland A's are back for one last time, although they get swept with Ricky Henderson, Willie McGee, Jose Canseco, Carney Lansford, Mike Gallego, Willie Randolph, Mark McGuire, Terry Steinbach, Dave Stewart. No DH game 1. The Reds, Eric Davis, Billy Hatcher, Paul O'Neill, Chris Sabo, Barry Larkin, Mariano Duncan, Hal Morris, Joe Oliver behind the plate, and then Jose Rijo pitching events up the hero of the series, 91, the Twins. Dan Gladden, Kirby Puckett, Shane Mack. We're talking Scott Lace, Greg Gagne, Chuck Knobloch, Kent Herbeck, Brian Harper catching, Jack Morris pitching, and Chili Davis is the DH, an all-time name. And then here come the Atlanta Braves, who this series are looking like Brian Hunter, Ron Gant, David Justice, Terry Pendleton, Rafael Belliard, Jeff Treadway, Sid Bream, Greg Olson. They go with Charlie Leibrandt, of all people, for game 1. And then Lonnie Smith is the DH on another team. In 92, Toronto Blue Jays. God, I remember this one vividly. We're talking Candy Maldonado, Devon White, and Dave Winfield. Your outfield, you're talking Kelly Gruber, Manuel Lee, Roberto Alomar, and the Joe Carter, actually, at first. Pat Borders catching, and Jack Morris on yet another team pitching. Against the Braves team this time, they put up Ron Gant, Otis Nixon, David Justice, infield's Terry Pendleton, Jeff Blauser, Mark Lemke, Sid Bream, Damon Berryhill catching, and Tom Glavine pitching, no DH. 93, the Blue Jays, Ricky Henderson, Devon White, Joe Carter. Infield is Ed Sprague, Tony Fernandez, Roberto Alomar, John Olerud, Pat Borders catching, Juan Guzman pitching, Paul Molitor is your DH. The Phillies, God, this was a fun series. Milt Thompson, Lenny Dykstra, Jim Eisenreich. Infield is Dave Hollins, Kevin Stocker, Mariano Duncan, John Kruk, Darren Dalton catching, Kurt Schilling pitching game 1, Ricky Jordan's your DH. 94 is the strike, so I get a break. I guess Something not really, because I'm going to do 95 right now. Cleveland, Albert Bell, Kenny Lofton, Manny Ramirez, your infield. Jim Thome, Omar Vizquel, Carlos Baerga, Eddie Murray. In catching, you got Sandy Alomar, and pitching, Oral Hershiser. And then this is the one that the Atlanta Braves actually win, as they go out there with Ryan Klesko, Marquise Grissom, David Justice. You got Chipper Jones, Rafael Belliard, Mark Lemke, and Fred McGriff. You have Charlie O'Brien catching game one, Greg Maddux pitching. Yeah, no DH in that one. 96, the, hi Missy. 96 Yankees, Darryl Strawberry, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill, infield Wade Boggs, Derek Jeter, Mariano Duncan, Tino Martinez, Jim Leyritz catching game one. Your pitchers Andy Pettit, and DH is Cecil Fielder, a guy I loved. Braves again, Andrew Jones, Marquise Grissom, Jermaine Dye, infield Chipper Jones, Jeff Blauser, Mark Lemke, Fred McGriff, Javi Lopez, and John Smoltz. And your DH is Ryan Klesko. 97, the Marlins and the Guardians, Indians, whatever. We are talking about Cleveland with David Justice, Marquise Grissom, Manny Ramirez, infield's Matt Williams, Omar Vizquel, Bip Roberts, Jim Thome, Sandy Alomar, Oral Hershiser. And they don't get to start the DH in this one, right? They don't. No, because it's 97. Goddamn. The Marlins, Moises Alou, Devon White, Gary Sheffield. Infield is, move your butt, girl. Goddamn. Infield's Bobby Bonilla, Edgar Renteria, Craig Counsell, and Darren Dalton. Charles Johnson behind the plate. Levon Hernandez pitching. That's 97. 98. Comes Yankees time again. Yankees, 98 Yankees. Ricky Lede, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill. Infield Scott Brocious, Derek Jeter, Chuck Knobloch, Tino Martinez. You got Jorge Posada behind the plate. They go with David Wells in game one, and Chili Davis is the DH. The Padres, Greg Vaughn, Steve Finley, Tony Gwynn is still there. You got Ken Caminiti, Chris Gomez, Quilvio Veras, Wally Joyner, Carlos Hernandez behind the plates. Kevin Brown pitching in game one, and the DH is Jim Leyritz, actually, Yankee, former Yankee. And then 99, another Yankee one, mostly similar. Ricky Lede, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill. You got Scott Brocious, Derek Jeter, Chuck Knobloch, Tino Martinez, Jim Leyritz. Orlando Hernandez, El Duque pitching, no DH in game one. The Braves, 99 Braves, Gerald Williams, Andrew Jones, Brian Jordan, Chipper Jones, Walt Weiss, Brett Boone, Ryan Klesko, Eddie Perez, Greg Maddux. No DH. And that's the 90s, man. I don't have a lot to do I? This is kind of fast. I can kind of do this kind of fast, huh? 2000s. Damn. Okay, Yankees, Mets. 2000s Yankees, David Justice, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill, Scott Brocious, Derek Jeter, Jose Vizcaíno, Tino Martinez, Jorge Posada. 2000 they go with Andy Pettit pitching, and Chuck Knobloch's your DH in this one. 2000 Mets, we're talking Benny Agbayani, Jay Payton, Timo Perez, Robin Ventura, Mike Bordick, Edgardo Alfonso, Todd Zeile, Todd Pratt behind the plate in game one, Al Leiter pitching, and then Mike Piazza's the DH, famously, in this series, 2000. 2001, the Yankees get their butts beat the year of 9/11 by the good old Diamondbacks. The good old, I mean like 2 years old at this point or something like that. Yankees this time going with Chuck Knobloch, Bernie Williams, and David Justice. We got Scott Brocious, Derek Jeter, Alfonso Soriano, Tino Martinez, Jorge Posada, Mike Messina. And then the Diamondbacks, Luis Gonzalez, Steve Finley, Reggie Sanders, Matt Williams, Tony Womack, Craig Counsell, Mark Grace, Damian Miller behind the plate. Your pitcher is Kurt Schilling for game one. 0-2. I really liked watching this one, man. 0-2, the Angels-Giants one. Anaheim Angels, their only appearance, Garrett Anderson, Darren Erstad, Tim Salmon in your outfield, Troy Gloss, David Eckstein, Adam Kennedy, and Scott Spezio on your infield. You got Benji Molina catching. Jared Washburn pitching. Your DH is Brad Fulmer. Giants, Barry Bonds, Kenny Lofton, Reggie Sanders infield, David Bell, Rich Aurelia, Jeff Kent, JT Snow. Benito Santiago behind the plate. You got Jason Schmidt pitching, and Tsuyoshi Shinjo is your DH. 0-3. Yankees, Marlins, Yankees. 0-3. Hideki Matsui, Bernie Williams, Kareem Garcia in your outfield. Infield is Aaron Boone, Derek Jeter, Alfonso Soriano, Nick Johnson, Jorge Posada catching, David Wells pitching, Jason Giambi is your DH. The Marlins, Miguel Cabrera, awesome. Juan Pierre, Juan Encarnacion, Mike Lowell, Alex Gonzalez, Luis Castillo, Derek Lee. You got Ivan Rodriguez catching. Game 1 goes to Brad Penny. Your DH is Jeff Conine. I'm starting to get like giddy, like delirious. This is starting to feel good. Like this is starting to back up into feeling good. This is really weird. Okay. 0-4. The Red Sox snap the curse. Hell yeah. Manny Ramirez, Johnny Damon, Trot Nixon. We're talking Bill Mueller. They were pronouncing it Miller when I was watching. That's goofy as hell to me. Orlando Cabrera, Mark Bellhorn, and Kevin Millar. You know, Millar in this infield. God, I'm getting distracted. Doug Mirabelli catching the knuckleballer Tim Wakefield with my man, Big Papi David Ortiz is the DH. Those Cardinals, man. So Taguchi, Jim Edmonds, and Larry Walker. We're talking Scott Rowland, Edgar Renteria, Tony Womack, Albert Pujols, Mike Matheny, Woody Williams on the mound. Your DH is Reggie Sanders. 0-5. White Sox Astros. Your White Sox are Scott Podsednik, Aaron Rowan, Jermaine Dye, Joe Creedy, Juan Uribe, Tadahito Iguchi, Paul Konerko, AJ Pierzynski, Jose Contreras pitching. DH-wise, we got Carl Everett. And then the Astros, back when they were a National League team, Lance Berkman, Willie Taveras, Jason Lane, Morgan Ensberg, Adam Everett, Craig Biggio, Mike Lamb, Brad Ausmus, Roger Clemens starting Game 1, Jeff Bagwell at DH. So now the home field advantage is determined by the All-Star Game winner. At this point, we're going to see the DH sort of like at random. Sometimes it'll be Game 1, sometimes it won't. I'll let you know. 0-6, Tigers, Cardinals in an embarrassing, shitty one. The Tigers, Craig Monroe, Curtis Granderson, Maglio Ordonez, Brandon Inge, Ramon Santiago, Placido Polanco, Carlos Guillen at first. You got Ivan Rodriguez catching, Justin Verlander on the mound, and Sean Casey is your DH. Cardinals team, So Taguchi, Jim Edmonds, Juan Encarnacion, Scott Rowland, David Eckstein, Ronnie Belliard, Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, Anthony Reyes on the mound, surprisingly, and then they did have a DH who was Chris Duncan. 0-7. Red Sox, Manny Ramirez, Jacoby Ellsbury, J.D. Drew. Infield consists of Mike Lowe, Julio Lugo, Dustin Pedroia, Kevin Youkilis. You got Jason Varitek catching. You got Josh Beckett in Game 1 pitching, I believe. And then David Ortiz is your DH. The Rockies in their only appearance, Matt Holliday, Willie Taveras, Brad Haupt, Garrett Atkins, Troy Tulowitzki, Kazuo Matsui, Todd Helton, Yervik Torioba, Jeff Francis starting Game 1, and Ryan Spilborghs is your DH. 0-8, my God. Tampa Bay Rays, their first appearance, Carl Crawford, BJ Upton, Ben Zobrist's first appearance here. You got Evan Longoria, Jason Bartlett, Akinori Iwamura, and Carlos Pena in the infield. You got Deandre Navarro catching, and then Scott Kazmir, Game 1 pitcher, Willie Ibar, DH. And then gets the Phillies, a couple years in a row here. The Phillies, we're talking Pat Burrell, Shane Victorino, Jason Worth, Pedro Feliz, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, Carlos Ruiz, Cole Hamels, and your DH is Chris Coast. 09 Yankees, the last appearance for the Yankees for quite a while. We're talking Johnny Damon, Melky Cabrera, Nick Swisher, infield, Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, Robinson Cano, and Mark Teixeira, a dickhead. And then, still Jorge Posada catching, CC Sabathia pitching Game 1, Hideki Matsui is your DH. against the Phillies, who this time out, we're talking Ben Francisco, Shane Victorino, and Jason Worth in the outfield. Pedro Feliz, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Ryan Howard in the infield, Carlos Ruiz catching, fucking Cliff Lee pitching, and your DH is Raul Ibanez. And then we're in the 2010s. Oh my God, I got like 16 more of these to do. This happened a lot faster than I thought it was gonna. I thought this was gonna be absolute hell, but this is like weirdly giddy. This is kind of cool, man. Okay, 2010, man. Rangers first appearance in the beginning of the Giants' even number dominance. The Rangers, Nelson Cruz, Josh Hamilton, and Vladimir Guerrero in the outfield because they can start with the DH. So we got Michael Young, Elvis Andrus, Ian Kinsler, and Mitch Moreland on the infield. Benji Molina catching, Cliff Lee pitching for yet another team. DH not starting this one. Good God. And then the Giants. Pat Burrell, Andres Torres, Cody Ross in your outfield. Infield's Juan Uribe, Edgar Renteria, Freddie Sanchez, Aubrey Huff, another guy I think's a fucking dickhead. Buster Posey catching. Tim Lincecum pitching. Oh, well, so 11, man. The Rangers are back. The Rangers are back and the Cardinals beat them this time, and it's crazy. You go 7 games, and I'm stalling. Ranger, David Murphy, Josh Hamilton, Nelson Cruz. We're talking Adrian Beltre, Elvis Andrus, Ian Kinsler, Michael Young, Mike Napoli, and C.J. Wilson, your pitcher. The Cardinals, Matt Holliday, John Jay, Lance Berkman. Infield's David Freese, Rafael Furcal, Nick Punto, Albert Pujols at first, Yadier Molina catching, Chris Carpenter pitching. No DH in game 1. 12, another year with no DH in game 1. Tigers, Giants, Tigers, Delman Young, Austin Jackson, Avisail Garcia, infield Miguel Cabrera, Johnny Peralta, Omar Infante, Prince Fielder. You got Alex Avila catching, Justin Verlander pitching. And then the Giants, this time out, Gregor Blanco, Angel Pagan, Hunter Pence. Infield consisting of Pablo Sandoval, Brandon Crawford, Marco Scudero, Brandon Bell. You got Buster Posey catching. You got Barry Zito going in game 1. 13. DH is back, I think, for like all but one of the series for game 1. 13. Red Sox, we're talking Johnny Gomes, Jacoby Ellsbury, Shane Victorino in your outfield. Infield, Xander Bogaerts, Stephen Drew, Dustin Pedroia, Mike Napoli. You got David Ross behind the plate, John Lester pitching game 1, David Ortiz is your DH. Against the Cardinals team, we're talking Matt Carpenter, Shane Robinson, and Carlos Beltran. Infield of David Freese, Pete Kozma, Matt Carpenter, and Matt Adams. Yeah, Yadier Molina behind the plate. And you got Adam Wainwright on the mound. And your DH is Alan Craig. 14, Kansas City Royals. Alex Gordon, Lorenzo Cain, Nori Aoki. We're talking Mike Moustakas, Alcides Escobar, Omar Infante, Eric Hosmer. You got Salvador Perez behind the plate. And James Shields pitching, and Billy Butler is your DH. And then the Giants, and their last, even number 1. Travis Ishikawa, Gregor Blanco, Hunter Pence. I'm running out of breath here. Pablo Sandoval, Brandon Crawford, Joe Panic, Brandon Belt, Buster Posey, Madison Bumgarner, and then Michael Morse is your DH. 15, the Royals winning over the Mets. Royals, Alex Gordon, Lorenzo Cain, Alex Rios, Mike Moustakas, Alcides Escobar, Ben Zobrist, Eric Hosmer, Salvador Perez, Edinson Volquez, and Kendrys Morales. And then the Mets, Michael Conforto, Yoenis Cespedes, Curtis Granderson. Your outfield, you got David Wright, Wilmer Flores, Daniel Murphy, and Lucas Duda in the infield. Travis Darnell catching. Matt Harvey in game 1. Kelly Johnson's your DH. 15. 16. The Cubs, Cleveland. This one was so awesome. Man, Cleveland, their goofy outfield. Were they like Brandon Guyer, Rajay Davis, and Lonnie Chisenhall? Jose Ramirez, at third. And you got Francisco Lindor, Jason Kipnis, and Mike Napoli. Roberto Perez catching. Corey Kluber pitching, and Carlos Santana on DH, not the wonderful musician. And then the Cubs, Ben Zobrist, Dexter Fowler, Chris Coughlin for game one. Infield, Chris Bryant, Addison Russell, Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo. You've got David Ross catching game one. You have John Lester on the mound. Kyle Schwarber, one of my faves, at DH. 17. This is last year. I think there's no DH for game one. And this is, the trash can year, so... try not to spit the names of the Astros out, I guess. I think I'm kind of over that, honestly. I got Bregman on the Cubs now. I can't whine too much. We're talking Marwin Gonzalez, George Springer, and Josh Reddick. We are talking Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, Yuli Gurriel, Brian McCann catching, Dallas Keuchel in game one, and Evan Gattis. Well, he doesn't start game one, so no DH in game one, so I jumped ahead. And then they beat the Dodgers, who... in this outing are like Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, and Yasiel Puig. Infield's Justin Turner, Corey Seager, Logan Forsythe, and Cody Bellinger. You got Austin Barnes catching, Clayton Kershaw pitching, and no DH in game one. 18. Red Sox. Andrew Benintendi, Jackie Bradley Jr., Mookie Betts. We're talking the infield's Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts, Ian Kinsler, Steve Pearce, Sandy Leon, Chris Sales pitching, JD Martinez is the DH. The Dodgers, this time, switch around. So you got Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, and Yasiel Puig. You got Justin Turner, Manny Machado, Brian Dozier, and David Freese on the infield. Austin Barnes catching, Clayton Kershaw pitching. They do use the DH, and the DH is Matt Kemp. 19, damn. Astros, again. Michael Brantley, George Springer, Josh Reddick. We're talking Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, Yuli Gurriel. We got Martin Maldonado behind the plate. You got Garrett Cole on the mound, and your DH is Yordan Alvarez, who absolutely rules. And then those Nationals that year. Juan Soto, Victor Robles, Adam Eaton. Infield's Anthony Rendon, Trey Turner, Asdrubal Cabrera, Ryan Zimmerman. You got... Kurt Suzuki behind the plate. Game one's Max Scherzer on the mound, and Howie Kendrick, the DH, very effective in that one. And damn, we're like in this decade, man. What's the time on that shit? It's been like an hour and 12 minutes. Damn. Okay. We did this under an hour and a half. Probably let's shoot for it. Let's do it. Let's do 6 more. Whew, the pandemic one. The Rays, Dodgers. Rays, we're talking Manuel Margot, Kevin Kiermaier, Hunter Renfroe. Infield is. It's Joey Wendell, Willie Adames, Brandon Lau, and Yandy Diaz. You got Mike Zunino behind the plate. Tyler Glasnow in game one. Randy Arozarena at DH. Love that dude. The Dodgers. Shit. Dodgers. Good God. I'm questioning myself on this one right now. I don't know why I am. I think I'm thinking too hard. The outfield. I'm talking this time out. Okay, we're talking Jock Peterson, Cody Bellinger, Mookie Betts. Right? Jock Peterson starts game one, not Pollock or Taylor. Right? I think. Damn. Then we got infield. Justin Turner, Corey Seager. Second base, I want to say Kike Hernandez. Damn, I'm trying to plug Chris Taylor in here. I don't think he starts game one. Kike Hernandez at second base. You got... Come on, man. Max Muncy at first. Austin Barnes catching, Clayton Kershaw is your pitcher. Will Smith's the DH. Damn, why was that the hardest one? I don't know. Just running out of steam. 21. Astros get beat by the Braves. Astros this time out. Michael Brantley, Chas McCormick, Kyle Tucker. We're talking Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve, Yuli Gurriel, Martin Maldonado catching. We've got Framber Valdez in game one. Yordan Alvarez at DH. Braves, though, with their reconstructed outfield of Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, and they go with Jock Peterson in game one. Infield, awesome infield, man. Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson, Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman. You got Travis d'Arnaud behind the plate. They go with the old man, Charlie Morton. pitching for game one. Jorge Soler is the DH. Oh, Missy, I only got a few more to do, honey. We're doing it. We're doing this. 22, Astros, Phillies, Astros. Game one, Yordan Alvarez, Chas McCormick, Kyle Tucker. Infield of Alex Bregman, Jeremy Pena, Jose Altuve, Yuli Gurriel. You again got Martin Baldonado behind the plate. You got Justin Verlander in game one. They go with Trey Mancini as the DH. The Phillies going with Kyle Schwarber, Brandon Marsh, and Nick Castellanos. Infield, Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott, Gene Segura, and Rhys Hoskins. You got JT Realmuto behind the plate. You got Aaron Nola pitching. Bryce Harper is the DH. Oh, God. 23. We're getting there. Rangers, Evan Carter, Leody Taveras, Adolis Garcia. And then your outfield is Josh Young, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. You get Nathaniel Lowe at first. Jonah Heim catching. Nathan Eovaldi. And then your DH is Mitch Garver. Diamondbacks, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Alec Thomas, Corbin Carroll, Evan Longoria, all these years later, Geraldo Perdomo, Ketel Marte, Christian Walker, Gabriel Moreno, Zach Gallen, and then Tommy Pham. Oh, 4. Shit. Yankees, Alex Verdugo, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto. Infield is Jazz Chisholm Jr., Anthony Volpe, Gleyber Torres, and Anthony Rizzo. Yeah, Austin Wells behind the plate. And Garrett Cole on the mound, and Giancarlo Stanton is your DH. But the Dodgers in 24. Shit. Dodgers with Tasker, Hernandez, Andy Pages. No, they didn't start Pages, dude. You fucked up. Back up a step. Tasker, Hernandez, Kike Hernandez, Mookie Betts. And then we're talking Max Muncy, Tommy Edman, Gavin Lux, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith behind the plate, Jack Flaherty pitching, and Shohei Ohtani's your DH. That's 24. Okay, this is the last one. Holy shit. I got it. Yeah. Okay, cool. The Blue Jays, man. Nathan Lucas, Dalton Varsho, Addison Barger, infielder Ernie Clement, Andres Jimenez, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Alejandro Kirk, Trey Savage in game one, and George Springer is the DH. Holy shit. And this is it. The Dodgers, who this time around were like Kike Hernandez, Andy Pages, Teoscar Hernandez, Max Muncy, Mookie Betts, Tommy Edman, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Blake Snell in game one, and Shohei Ohtani's the DH. I fucking did it. Oh my God. Let me know how I messed up. I know no one watched this. I don't care. Who cares? That's all the World Series lineups, dude. Hyperfixation speedrun, hour and 17 minutes. Beat it, man.